Well, hello. Welcome to the Creative Writing Life podcast, where we talk with writers from all mediums and genres about themselves, their work, and advice they have for writers. I'm your host, Paul Zibin. My guest today, I'm thrilled to have her on. I've been a big fan of hers for a very long time, and she will get into that, hopefully not too much of a long time. It is comedian Jackie Kashian. Jackie, thank you so much for being on the Creative Writing Life podcast.
Well, thanks for having me. Super fun. Let's do it.
Yes, let us definitely do that. We're going to get into talking to Jackie not only about her background as a stand-up comedian, but really about her process for writing comedy, primarily jokes for herself in her stand-up routine, which I've had the pleasure of seeing a couple of times over the past couple of weeks. But for those who are familiar with the show, we'd like to start things off talking about anything we may have read or watched lately. Did we like it? Did we hate it? Were we indifferent? Like, I don't ever want to have anything to do with that ever again. I will go first just to give Jackie a few minutes to collect her thoughts. So a couple of films that I've been watching. Finally got around to seeing it and liked it a lot more than I expected to, but I still knew I was going to like it, is Predator Badlands, which is on Disney/Hulu. And if you liked Prey, it's the same writer-director, Dan Trachtenberg, who did that. He did this one, and it's just so much fun. It's like a really fun B science fiction movie, and just they had so much fun making it, and I really enjoyed watching it, so that was really cool. And of course, some spam risk call denied. Also, Netflix. On Netflix, I don't know. I think because I watch a lot of animation as well. It's a 20-part or 21-part micro short series called Samuel. And it is, I'm guessing it's originally French because all of the names in the production are French sounding, but it is definitely dubbed because it's about this 10-year-old boy and he gets a diary and all of the things that go on with his life. And the real giveaway was the fact that he goes to visit his grandparents in Miami, and they go to the beach, which of course is surrounded by those luscious mountains in the Miami area. So that was a kind of a clue. Not really American made, but it was still enjoyable. And I was a bit under the weather this weekend, so I put on one of my comfort food movies, of course, the Immortal Raiders of the Lost Ark. I can never get tired of watching it. And also, the one thing, and so I've got a book, and it was recommended. It turns out we actually had it in our house library because my daughter had to read it for school. Understanding Comics by Scott McCloud. I just started it.
That's
It is
so good.
fascinating. I love it so
really
much.
good.
It's great.
Yeah.
It's great. I cannot wait to kind of dive into it a little bit more. But that's it for me. So, Jackie, what about you? Anything on the reading and or watching front?
Sure. Well, I will tell you this. When you said it, I wrote down I've been watching the Olympics.
Oh,
I've been
okay.
watching all of the Olympics because I have Peacock. And and my favorite parts of the Olympics are going to be when there's big air. And so I like the half pipes, and I like the slope style, and I like the skiing where they do the flips and the things, and it looks like a video game, but it isn't because it's real people doing it. Very exciting. The show that I started, that I like the first episode. It's on Netflix. It's called How to Get to Heaven from Belfast.
Okay.
And it's by the makers of the Dairy Girls. I don't know if you ever watched
I've
that.
heard of the Dairy Girls, but I think
Right.
it came up on Netflix, not recommended for you, but I did see it on my screen.
Right. So the Dairy Girls is essentially a show about four high school kids in Belfast, Ireland, during the '90s and the Troubles, and the terrorism and the bombings and all this stuff in Ireland and the IRA, and how just life, they were just 16, and so this one is set in Belfast, current day, and it is essentially about three old friends who go back to find their fourth friend, and there is a mystery. So I have no idea what it is. Could be a murder show, could be some weird X-Files kind of thing where aliens are. I mean, I genuinely don't know. It could be Resident Alien. I got nothing.
So you say
So,
potential cozy mystery, but maybe not.
not cozy. It's dark. It's dark
Okay.
and funny. It's dark and very. Dairy Girls was hilariously dark and funny, but it was high school kids, and kind of sitcom-y,
Mhm.
but wonderful because it was an Irish sitcom, so it didn't have the same pattern, right?
Sure.
And then books. I have finished. I do this thing where I read a book. I have a book running on Audible, an audiobook, and then I have a book I'm rereading on Kindle. On even though I'm trying to quit Amazon, clearly Audible and Kindle are not two of those things I'm quitting. So I share the audiobook with my brother. Anyway, so there's an interview book with Judi Dench and the guy that curates the Shakespeare Globe Theater,
Okay.
and he interviews her about all of the Shakespeare she's ever done. And they are old friends, and so it is very funny and has made me want to now see Shakespeare,
Wow.
which I read in high school. I've tried to read it. I've seen any number of remakes,
Hmm.
obviously updated, you know,
Modern day interpretations.
damn straight, right? So, but now I am willing to go into the woods and see a Los Angeles production of A Midsummer's Night Dream, is what I'm saying. And then the next, and I'm reading Diamond Age. I think it's called Diamond Age. Is that the Neil Stephenson? Remember the guy who wrote Snow Crash?
I'm not familiar with that one.
Oh, Snow Crash, very famous old sci-fi nerd book
Okay.
about the invention of the internet. And Neil Stephenson, um, and it was the one I'm reading is about everyone else liked Snow Crash more than me. I liked Zodiac, which was an environmental one. They're
Hmm.
all written in the 80s and 90s, I believe. Oh no, all 90s. But the one that I am reading is called The Diamond Age, and it's about nanotechnology.
Wow.
And I just started that, but it's 92. It's from 92, so they don't. Dude, it's set in the 21st century. Things are happening that are not happening,
I
but it's science fiction.
was gonna say, are there jetpacks and flying cars?
They're no, but they are creating land out of the ocean,
Okay.
which we look at that now and go, no, no, leave the ocean alone. We need the ocean. Don't fuck with it. And it's all that's left.
Okay, I was gonna say, going back to the Judy Dench interview, does she like just randomly just start spout like quoting different plays, like
No.
at the top, the drop of a hat?
Yeah, yeah. At the drop of a hat, she'll do entire scenes. But so this is based on a 120-hour interview that he did with her that was
Wow.
just going to be for the archives, and then the archivist or the nation or whoever they were like, too many swears, Judy. Anyway, so he went through and he culled it down to like an 11-hour book on tape, right? An audiobook. And she is also 90 years old and cannot, like, she couldn't read the book
Hmm.
because she did the original interviews, and those will, I assume, be available at some point. And there's like a 45-minute bonus where it's just her and him kind of shooting the breeze. That's very great. But they have an actress doing a Judi Dench impression, reading the book, and it's amazing. She nails it. It's so good.
Well, that sounds really cool. It also sounds like a long car drive type of listening thing.
Right. Or at 20-minute intervals, because each
Mm.
chapter is about, anywhere between 5 to 38 minutes.
Okay, that's great
So
stuff. Oh,
pretty good commute book.
all right, fantastic. Okay, so I like to usually do like the about the author section, but since we're talking to Jackie Kashian, stand-up comedian, and they've got this long printout from her website that's all about her, and she
I
said, you
did.
know what? Let's promote a couple of specific things. I was telling Jackie before we started, I've discovered her through when I was listening to the old Comedy Film Nerds podcast, and she was a frequent guest, and that led to me to her podcast, or one of her first of two podcasts, The Dork Forest, which is always an entertaining listen. And also, more recently, I got into her other podcast about stand-up comedy, the Jackie and Laurie show that she does with Laurie Kilmartin, which and that's what led me to be able to attend. She did a New Year's Eve show with Greg Proops here in San Francisco. And I also got to see her just over a week ago as part of her Northern California tour in Berkeley. And so that was a lot of fun too.
Oh, good.
So Jack, and also she wanted to make sure we mention her new special, Altercation, comes out. This episode drops the same day, Wednesday, February 25th, on YouTube.
Right. It'll be on YouTube, and the album, I think Sirius has it by themselves for the first couple of weeks, and then it goes into just the regular album will be listenable everywhere of, I believe, a month later. So February 25th, if you want to just go to YouTube and watch it, you can see me. I'm wearing an America Chavez jacket. Very fun.
Fantastic.
Nerd
Marvel
alert.
Comics reference. Very good.
Yep.
Very good. Okay, so Jackie, let's start a little bit about you and your background. So how did you get your start? I mean, were you, like the class clown in school? Were you just, were you big,
No.
big on telling jokes? I mean, how did you enter the world of stand-up?
But poorly. So I've told the story so many times, so I apologize if anybody's heard it already. It was I went to college at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. The drinking age was 18. When I was a little over that, I went and saw a stand-up comedy show for the first time ever. We had never done stand-up when I was a kid. We never listened to stand-up. It was my dad's a sales guy. So we listened to a lot of Zig Ziglar and, motivational stuff more than anything else. And then my brothers were into sort of like like Deep Purple. Remember that
Okay.
band? Anyway,
Sure,
so
sure.
we had a record player. Anyway, so we had a record player. We had a television. It wasn't completely without any sort of technology, and I watched a lot of sitcoms when I was a kid. And I remember one time saying to my dad, "I want to remember that line," and my dad goes, "For what?" And I said, I don't know. It might become a situation where I get to use that line, and I'm gonna. And he was like, "That's weird." And I was like, "All right, well." And then I found out later that he had seen stand-up comedy or heard stand-up comedy and had cannibalized any number of their albums. So what a jackass to be putting the kibosh on my 11-year-old memorization skills. Anyway, so I'm 18, almost 19, I think, maybe 19, whatever. We go see a comedy show in Madison, Wisconsin. I get so drunk that I heckle the comedian. He cannot shut me up because this continues to be true that women hecklers are the worst because the audience, for some reason, is still sympathetic to a woman heckler. And even if she will not shut up. And I was heckling, by the way, Sam Kinison.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and he did his darndest to mop the floor up with me, and it's you can't mop the. I should have been ejected. I should have
Mhm.
been removed, but it was a brand new club, and so they didn't want to lose a dime. And
Wow.
but eventually the manager came over and said, "Hey, open mic is on Sunday. You have to shut up." And so 3 weeks later, I went to open mic, and it was like what I assume falling into a vat of heroin is like, because I loved it. And I did stand up every night for 8 months, and I
Wow.
got a 1.8 that semester. And then the club burned down. So after that, I had to just do open mics around Madison, Wisconsin. And then the seven of us, the comics that were local, the couple of them started putting up one nighters around, and
Mhm.
then I started doing a little bit of one nighters in like Milwaukee, and then I graduated in '88, and then I moved. I went to Europe and got drunk for a little while. I lived with my sister for a winter, did open mics in Milwaukee, and then I moved to Minneapolis in 1990. And
Mhm.
that's when I sort of started over. But I had a great advantage of 8 months every single night doing 5 to 10 minutes.
I was going
Not
to say.
well.
Right. I was going to ask, like, when you started, I mean, what was your material? I mean, were you cribbing a lot from like other, comic bits you've heard, or was it just all like, I'm
No,
just going to write my own material?
no. We were told immediately from the get go that you had to write your own material. And a couple of the guys have been doing it about a year, a little bit. And they made fun of me because I didn't know who Lenny Bruce was. And,
Hmm.
there was a lot of sort of, they weren't they weren't monsters. I lucked out very well. I lucked out the young men that I started doing stand up with. They were jackasses. They weren't monsters. But I have four brothers, so that essentially personifies all 18-year-old men. That they can be sometimes all 18-year-old people. Quite honestly, they can be jackasses, but they don't have to be monsters. So, but they all, after we graduated, they all moved to Chicago, so I moved to Minneapolis because I was done hanging out with them. It was great. And then I lived in Minneapolis until '97, and then I moved to LA. I was doing the road pretty hardcore by '97.
Hmm.
I had a day job forever, and moved to LA. only did the road about 10 or 12 weeks a year once I moved to LA because I had to get away from my day job and also um and keep that job because I wanted
Right.
to I wanted to pay rent. And then in 2003 I got a half hour special, and so I quit my day job, and then ever since then I've been doing the road about I'm back to doing the road. In Minneapolis I had a day job, but it was a hippie day job, so
Hmm.
I could do the road like 30, 35 weekends a year, and they were very understanding. And then in LA, my job there, my boss was incredibly understanding. She was like, you could either do 2 6-week runs or 1 10-week run. She didn't put it like that, but that's what she meant. But she's like, and you'll have 2 weeks vacation. I'll pay you. You can keep your insurance, and we'll just hire a temp
Hmm.
because I was just doing admin. Like I was answering the phone and digitizing. It was a closed captioning company. I was digitizing tapes and, it was, yeah. And then so in 2003, I just started doing the road hardcore. And in 2004, I moved in with my then boyfriend, and he was incredibly supportive, both financially and and emotionally. But financially, by that I mean where we sort of like our rent. He did what my brother Phil has always done with his wives and partners and whatever, where it's a sliding fee. Like so Andy lapped me at least twice
Hmm.
financially. So he paid 75% of the bills, and then I paid 25% of the bills. And now, about 10 years ago, eight, whatever, he got laid off. He's a game designer, and he got laid off and went uh, independent. And so his financial info, like, it went a lot less, and we've kind of flipped. But he has at least 10 years worth of credit,
Hmm.
so it's all good. And but he was a couple of years ago. He said, "I don't want to make video games anymore. I want to make board games." And I was like, "Wow." He goes, "Yeah, the lucrative world of board games."
Yeah, you was going to say you laugh, but I think more people are into board games than a lot of people realize that it's almost like
It's a huge thing right
it's an
now.
underground market type of thing.
Yep, yep. And he's got a couple that are ready for publishing that just need to get it together. And then he's also working on a new tabletop role playing book with a system that he's been working on for 7 years. And so he's hoping to publish this year. And yeah, so it's great. It's a different kind of writing,
Hmm.
obviously.
Yeah,
You should
yeah.
have him on. Yeah.
Oh, I just might because again, we talked to writers of all kinds of things.
Right,
So
right. I was thinking that. Yeah.
so like, what is your process for? I guess we'll start like you coming up with a joke. I mean, do you like do you mind? I've heard your act. I've heard your podcast. You do a lot from your personal life. Do you think of something like, okay, this would make a good joke? Do I have to tweak it? Do I have to adjust it? Do I have to change names? I mean, do you start with an idea and then take it from there, or do you kind of like let it simmer for a little bit or marinate, if you want to call it that?
Well, I have a notebook, and with stand up notebooks, I don't know. I've seen a lot of people do it like this, but this is not the only way, obviously.
Hmm.
Every way is fine. Whatever gets you on stage, whatever gets you with words on a page is the win, right? So I do bullet points, essentially, but no dots. I just write like 3 words, 3 words, 3 words, and then the next page will be um, it'll essentially I'll just write out everything that I think is that has potential for being funny for that.
Hmm.
And then I work it out on stage. I might have one punchline, I might have two. Were you at Spats?
I was gonna ask you about that because
Wow.
I was there. The light bulb went off over your head that
Yeah.
you did like this celebratory dance on stage because you told this story about your sister as children,
Right.
and
Right.
you ended it with, "That's the perfect punchline."
Yes,
Words to that effect. And then you
right.
just like, punch the air. And I was going to say, I really wanted to ask you about that because you don't really see that as often on stage because usually it's the comedian has really workshopped and fine-tuned that joke until like they know what the punchline is and they're just honing the joke itself so it all is a tight delivery. But yours
I'm in
was just like, hey,
I'm in a weird place right now because the new album's coming out, right?
right.
So, I have to write a lot of new material because a bunch of people are going to hear all those jokes
Hmm.
and they're going to hear them as many times as they want to. And so if they come and see me and they hear those jokes again, one of the things about comedy is surprise. Surprise is often one of the things you're looking for. And it's not that people don't re-listen to comedy albums and love the bits and wouldn't mind hearing them again. They don't want to hear all of them,
Right.
and they would like to hear new ones. so so I'm in sort of a unique position where I have to write um kind of a lot of stuff. And that chunk, that one punchline, it's not enough, by the way. I just did 5 shows in Denver, and it didn't work quite as well.
Hmm.
Just because with stand up, it's a lot of it is about you have to get the and I think I have that spats set on my phone, but
Okay.
I don't know. And you have to say it the correct way. You also have to say it in the right inflection with the right timing, and you have to set it up right, and you have to tag it right. So there's more to it. I mean, I'm sure in prose writing or something like that, you have to set up,
Hmm.
the plot, and then you have a reveal, and then you have the denouement or the thing that the next thing that happens. Right? You
Hmm.
can't just go, that was it. We're done.
Yeah, yeah. That's raises a question I also had for you. Like, how often do you, I guess, practice a joke, or is this part of your set? I mean, you see, like, you did that joke in Berkeley, and that was about a week and a half ago, and then you, as you said, you just did 5 shows in Denver, and you try. I'm assuming you tried the joke out at each of those shows.
Well, one of them, it was second show Friday. They were too tired. I was like, they do not need me to go into the longest, because the thing is it's part of this giant chunk that has at least, okay, so I have 5 siblings.
Right.
I have 3 points that I wish to sort of work on.
Hmm.
That's 15 premises essentially. And I can't work on all of them every night because
Sure.
that's exhausting for both of us
Hmm.
and me and the audience. So um, I've been talking to Lori about this on the Jackie and Lori show about just maybe I break it down into each sibling, right? And I had tried to break it down for my oldest brother, who I barely know, right? He is 10 years older than me. He was out of the house by the time I was 7, right?
Hmm.
6 or 7 years old. And so I all I have of him is judgment, right? I don't have a lot of I don't have a lot of you know, and I don't like to do jokes um where all it is me saying something mean about somebody,
Right.
right? Yeah, I mean, that's not what how is that fun? You're just like, even if it's somebody horrible, like if it's
Hmm.
even if it's Taco Knob Job, I don't want to spend 40, even 5, I don't want to spend 2 minutes
Hmm.
mentioning his name, mentioning his policies and trying to find something funny about them that isn't, what if we took a pillow and put it over his head? I mean, that's not, that's where's the it's not comedy. There's
Right.
no
Right.
comedy there.
I was
Okay.
going to say, so it sounds like it's almost like you, because of your experience of how long you've been doing stand up, that you're kind of able to gauge when it's the right time to take something further or when to cut it short or when just like, okay, you know what, I'm not comfortable doing this or the audience doesn't seem as receptive that you just kind of like are able to, I guess we'll call it self edit or like
That's it exactly. I would say, yeah.
stop before like, okay, I have to stop before it gets too carried away or before they really lose interest.
Right, right. The snoring. It's not good.
Hmm.
It's not ideal. But like I did what happened over the weekend. I talked to my dad, and so it inspired a bunch of me trying to work on a bunch of stuff about my dad. Because my dad is 88.
Hmm.
I have at least an hour's worth of material between my 5 or 6 albums about him. And he said a funny thing. He said, so I dropped something on the ground and I squatted down to pick it up. And I said, wait, you can still squat at 88? And he said, no, this is what I learned. I squatted down and fell on my ass. And I was like, and then what did you do? He said, rolled over and did a push-up because I used to be a gym rat. And, I was like, fair enough. Good to hear.
That's great. So that raises a primary question I had for you was, how do you determine if a joke is funny? I mean, you've got the benefit of having practiced and honed your craft for so long, but as you're working on maybe like new material, as you said, you write down 15 potential punchlines or situations, what have you. That how do you like what's that internal gauge that says, okay, this is good, there's some potential here. This one's just not going to work. I mean, how are you able to determine that?
When you said you have the advantage, I thought you were going to say you have the advantage of talking in front of an audience, which is something a lot of writers do not have. And I get an instant reaction to absolutely everything I say. I know almost immediately if it's going to be funny by the silence in the room.
That's a good gauge.
Yeah, it's a heck of a gauge. It's a perk of the craft. And it's sometimes you fight against it, right? Where you're like, I haven't put it correctly. You didn't not essentially you're inside going, you didn't get it. All right.
I was going to say, you're not getting this. Come on, this is funny.
You're not getting the joke, which the next move is then to rewrite that joke. Because if they don't get it, it means they genuinely don't get it. It's and what everyone should need to know about stand-up comedy is nobody goes to a comedy club hoping not to laugh.
Right.
That's a very rare, I mean, unless they've been dragged there by a family member, and then they're just sitting there with their arms folded going, I have beer at home. I don't understand what this is all about. Why are we here? But yeah, so it's like that.
Okay, that also raises the great question. So like going back to these 5 shows in Denver you had this past weekend. So how do you know to react, or how do you react to when you get different reactions to the same joke? Like you have one joke, like your first show of the night, crowd loves it, and you try the second show, crickets. And do you kind of like, okay, is there like some middle ground I can find here, or is like, okay, I know what was it about the first crowd that seemed to really like it more, and why did it not work for the second crowd?
Oh, if I knew how to, if I could bottle that, are you kidding me? Yeah, I have to say that the real, so the difference between the first show and the second show is that it's later. They're maybe a little drunker, they're a little tireder. Sometimes it's not as full, and when there's a big audience and they're packed in, it's often easier to get a laugh from a bunch of people that are sitting closer together because laughter is so infectious. And it's usually not the difference between a huge laugh and crickets at this level of stand-up comedy. It's usually the difference between a huge laugh and
Light chuckles.
Yeah, it's like I see what you did, and you're like, all right. I'm glad you saw what I did there. I would have enjoyed the laughter a great deal more, but I get it. Yeah. Okay. So you have to sort of raise and lower your expectations in the moment, because every audience is going to be slightly different. They're often going to be perfectly fine and the same, and you're going to get the same big laughs on the same stuff, especially stuff that's more universal, right? Like if I do, like I'm doing that joke about my nightmares, I guess people walked out. People walked out after that joke the other night, and I was like, "What? What just happened?" And I didn't see it because the room is very dark. And I later in my set, I did notice that there was sort of some empty seats, but I didn't know. I think and they could have left because I triggered them, because the nightmare was scary, and people get triggered, man. Or they didn't like my politics, because I would love to tell you I wasn't going to talk about anything socio-political, but that can't happen right now. I don't know how. I can only write about what I'm thinking about.
Hmm.
And I can only do jokes about what I'm thinking about. And I can purposefully try not to be super mean or so super dark, but it's going to be a little dark. It's going to be a little less. I don't have perfect control over the topics.
Mm-hmm.
Some people, that's why when any comics say that they're doing a character, I'm like,
Yeah.
especially if the character is consistently that character. Because yeah, you can. Because I might do one joke that I'm like, I'm doing that joke anyway. Is what that is what that is.
Mm-hmm.
And
I
and so if you're doing that character, you're doing that character anyway. You know that it's a jackass character, but you want to do those jokes.
mhm.
I know that it's a jackass joke to make a joke about my dead mother and how she was 33 when she died, age of Christ. Coincidence? Yes. That's the whole joke. It's not the nicest joke I've ever written in my life.
Sure.
And as my father likes to say, she was 34. She just turned 34. And I was like, but for the purpose of the joke, turns out she's going to be 33. Okay.
Okay. So that raises another great question. Like, as you're developing your set and like you've got stuff that maybe you've been doing a little longer. So how do you know when it's time to phase something out and bring something in? Because you said you've got your notebook or your set list. Uh, do you just make adjustments on that? And as you said, you've got your three, hint words like, okay, I'll write the joke about this. And are you able to, because of your experience having done it, are you able to, I guess, make that smooth transition into that new joke, or is it, are you still maybe like stumbling your way through, or is it you're just so used to it that you're able to just get
Oh,
right
you're
to it?
talking about transitions from older material to newer material?
Yeah,
Okay. The segues and stuff like that?
sure.
Well, it's because I like to, because like the new album is coming out, I have to lose a bunch of stuff.
Hmm.
And the new album has a bunch of mask jokes, like post lockdown.
Oh, so like COVID mask jokes.
Yeah, COVID
Okay.
mask jokes. There's a chunk in there about being in airports when we were still wearing masks, and but we had been vaccinated, and but we're still, everybody was still wearing masks, and we were all supposed to. Well, getting rid of that chunk, I think I kept a couple of those punchlines that I'm still doing from that chunk because they could go other places.
Okay.
But um it's easy to get rid of stuff, and transitions don't, because I tend to talk about the same six things. It's going to be, I was in the middle, like what I did in Denver that was different was I was talking about all this rage stuff and all this anger,
Hmm.
and me processing it. And then I start into how I was renting a car for and then that leads into me being essentially called Karen. But before I get to the Karen story, I decided this weekend to drop in all of the car stuff, which was a lot lighter
Hmm.
because it's about driving. That's good times. We're all driving. Me and my rage issues, very specific, and my impoliteness issues, and how I deal with them. So, and then at the end of the essentially drive defensively because I'm out there 4 minutes, right? Then I go and I say I tried to rent a car, and I was a jerk about it, and I was called Karen. And that's the gist of the joke. It's not the joke. So, because it's also, every joke I write it starts out at 6 minutes and it ends up at 2.5 minutes, but it could take 18 months, you know?
Wow.
Like I would love to write fiction. I
Hmm.
would love to have written a book,
Okay.
because of how much work it is. But what I should do is I should listen to this podcast. and find out how other people write novels, right?
Oh, it's a wide variety of all kinds of things, and I was gonna say if you're really into YA, definitely have that covered. Uh, so I actually want to take a few steps back. You kind of touched on this a little bit earlier. What were your earliest days of doing stand up like? I mean, you said everybody had to write their own material. Was that kind of like I guess we call it trial by fire, just kind of like you would go up and just do your jokes and like were you still able to gauge, did the audience like it? Did anybody laugh? I mean, was it
Yeah,
it must have been encouraging enough that you're like, hey, I actually, I like doing this and I'm having fun.
right. Blessedly, it was before anybody recorded or filmed anything. So, but I remember there were three jokes I remember from that first 8 months, I think. And one was a dick joke that was dumb. It was about how men belonged at home in the kitchen, barefoot with a frisbee on his head so I could put my beer in his head. It was really, it's very sad. Anyway, and then there was a joke that I've actually brought back kind of the bones of that joke or the setup of that joke was about how my first bike that I had when I was 15, um, I took a class in high school called biking and bowling. And I thought it, and the punchline was, as I thought it was going to be like polo, where you would you'd bowl from the bike, but it was bike's not included. And then I described my bike, and now I talk about that bike a little bit in this other bit. So, and then the third one, oh, that was the one. Yeah. See, the thing about stand up comedy, when you first start doing stand up comedy, if anybody wants to do stand up comedy, open mics, go to them. They're only going to give you 3 minutes and don't go over. So find 3 topics you want to talk about that you think might be funny. If you have punchlines, that'd be great.
Mhm.
Audio tape it so that you can listen to it after and go, oh, I missed an opportunity for a punchline there, maybe. But whatever. We're all just it's like pasta. You're throwing noodles at the wall, hoping that something sticks. It's just you're looking for al dente, and it's all trial and error. It's all iteration. More so, I think, than anything else. Like my husband's a game designer. He said he play tests and play tests and play tests all these board games and all these games. Granted, and with all writing and with all creation, you have to be done eventually. You have to say, if I paint this one more time, I don't like his wing. My dad paints, right? And he's constantly, and then eventually he's bored. He's like, take it, do whatever you want with it. I don't care. And some of it's very fun. Like I've got a couple over here. He's got a very nice, like river scene. And then
Mhm.
there's 3 corn on the cobs that he did. It was sort of like Indian corn. So there's a purple one and a blue one. It's neat. Anyway, so, but like with everything, it's iteration. And then eventually you have got to let it go, which is what doing an album is, right?
Mm.
I'm sure it's the same with music, though it always feels like a song is done when they stop playing it. So I don't know what they're doing. So you should get a musician on.
Okay. Well, speaking of albums, as we referenced at the beginning of the show, your new would you call it new album?
Yeah.
Okay,
Well, that's what I do.
Altercation that drops
Yep.
today. We're the day this episode of the podcast also drops. How did you decide what bits to include in it? I mean, and you said you probably were working on this for quite a while, just trying to assemble material and editing.
It's been 4 years since my last one, I think, 5 maybe. It's usually 3 between albums. But I've been doing a lot of opening for Maria Bamford,
Hmm.
and 20-minute chunks don't lend itself to building an album. You could put together a 60 minutes of material, but you have to run that 60 a lot to sort of get what the arc is and where it begins and where it ends and stuff. But I learned so much writing just as because this is a writing podcast. I write with Maria
Hmm.
on regular, and she has the greatest ideas of where a joke could go, and she hopefully she says the same about me. But she has the greatest ideas of where a joke should go. And it has made my stand-up so much better just collaboratively to go. The only rule of Joke Machine is you can't say to somebody, why would you talk about that? No, no. If you don't like the joke, or if you don't think that, if you don't get it, or if you don't, there's two ways to go when you're writing with somebody else collaboratively in stand-up. One is to say, well, there's definitely something there.
Mhm.
And then you say that bit made me, or that premise made me think about this. Like, well, then what did he say after? Or what did you do before that? How did it get to there? Like, just to sort of keep telling the story to find out where the joke should have come from, or to go, or to lateral move into. I remember I was doing it with a guy named Gary Anderson, and playing Joke Machine, and he it was like, oh, I think I was talking about being a good ally, and I was looking for an analogy of an ally, and he said, is it like you were a good ally but like Godzilla? And I was like, because he said, because you know how Godzilla's the good guy in a lot of the movies, and I was like, I'd forgotten that Godzilla was the good guy in all of the movies. So yes, and it was the greatest. It was like one of those light bulby kind of like, oh my God, Godzilla. Yes, please. And so you eventually, and I have to say this is 6 weeks before I recorded that album, I came up with a new opening 10 minutes.
Hmm.
By the way, that opening 10 minutes is much better than it was when I recorded it.
Oh.
So it's a good opening couple of minutes, but it's a lot better now, because I've worked on it since, because I loved it so, and it's a lot tighter. But
Okay.
that'll be fun for everybody to listen and then come and see me live and see it better. Good for you.
That's going to say again. It is ALTER-KASHIAN, available on YouTube as of today, February 25th. Also, we discussed this briefly before we started recording, that you were a voracious reader as a child, and as we heard at the beginning of the show, still a voracious reader. And I know from experience listening to primarily the Dork Forest, you really like fantasy, and you also really like romance novels. And you said, would you want to give yourself the challenge of trying to write one of those kinds of novels, even like, something short, like a novella, if you will?
Well, it'd be a good way to start, right? To
Hmm.
just fucking do it. Just sit down and I had an opportunity that didn't end up panning out because I wrote a spec on it. I was asked by Audible to write a parody of a romance novel,
Hmm.
and I made it too complicated. I tried, because the romance
Oh,
novels that I
wow.
read are historical romance,
Hmm.
and they are both historical and, in quotes, historical, right? So they are essentially alternate histories to some extent, right?
Okay.
And a very Bridgerton kind of situation. Think Bridgerton and then go into a more serious place, and into a more craptastic place, and it's hard, but you can't go better dressed. But I will say that I read the Bridgerton books many years ago before
Hmm.
the TV show came out, and I've read Jane Austen, and she was, of course, not writing historical romance; she was writing contemporary romance, and because she was alive during the time that Bridgerton supposedly takes place in,
Okay.
and there's a woman named Georgette Heyer who actually, as far as I can tell, probably wrong, but I feel like she created the historical romance novel. She
Hmm.
started writing in the era of Jane Austen. She was like, I love that Regency era. And then she wrote these essentially 150, 200-page romance novels in the 20s through 1970.
Wow.
And then Harlequin romances started being created around the 50s and 60s, and women would buy them in grocery stores because you could a lot of women were given, like, if they didn't work, they were given a budget for the grocery, and they could secretly buy books, or they could buy a book that was written by a woman for women about women,
Hmm.
because that's what romance novels are. and they are often incredibly empowering. It's why all that YA stuff is such a huge, like every 13-year-old who is now emotionally a 43-year-old, but in like able to exist in like a 24-year-old is now a 13-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
Right, there's like these differences where every 13-year-old knows more about sex and um tech and politics, and like they have like this knowledge base that I'm like, you are an old man. And then you meet a 24-year-old who has is a hothouse flower, who
Yeah.
is just like, I can't, well, we can't, and I don't enjoy, and you're like, okay, I mean, this is not anybody's fault, and I don't know how to correct it, because in some ways it's beautiful, right? A 43-year-old 13-year-old is kind of hilarious, right?
Mm-hmm.
And also gross. But
Yeah.
and a 27-year-old who acts like a 17-year-old can be exasperating, but also can be so full of joy
Mm.
and so able to live in the present, that I learned from that, right? And then my dad is 88, and I swear to God he thinks he's 38,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because you don't. Andy said something the other day. We were watching the Olympics, and one of the I think the skiers was 41, and he said, I was thinking to myself, when I'm in my 40s, I could do that. And then we looked at each other, and I'm like, you, my friend, are in your 50s. And he goes, I know, I just realized that. Anyway, so
Oh, that's great. That is great stuff. Jackie, I want to thank you so much for being here today.
thanks
Where
for
can
having me.
pe
This was fun.
I'm glad. I'm really glad. Where can people find out more about you and your stand-up and all of the stuff you're involved with?
Well, your best bet is to start at my website, which is JackieKashian.com. I've also purchased FamilyPetAncestry.com that points to JackieKashian.com. Why? Why did I buy FamilyPetAncestry.com? Because I thought it was funny. It turns out it's now real. But if you, because I thought it would be something where, like, did my cat come over on the Mayflower? How funny would that be if there was a FamilyPetAncestry.com? Is my dog eligible to join the Dogs of the American Revolution? Anyway, so, but if you can't spell Jackie Cation, you can spell FamilyPetAncestry.com. And it just gets you there. And what you'll do is you'll find out about all the podcasts. You'll see this 10-minute special I made right after lockdown, where I tell car jokes into the ass camera of a Mazda 6 in reverse. So essentially, Kyle Clark, who is our producer, he filmed it inside of his Mazda 6. He filmed the rear view camera inside the car. I stared into the ass camera of the license plate with a lavalier mic on me and told my jokes. And it's 11 minutes. So that's something weird that's on my website. And then there's just a bunch of clips, and there's merch, and there's podcasts, and there's
And
the
tour
new
dates?
album, and the new specials, and tour dates. Holy shit. Yeah. I am going to Chicago, Milwaukee, Germany, Vermont, Boston, Portland, Maine. I'm all over the country. I'm wherever you might want to be. I am not in Florida. It's nothing personal, except it might be. Anyway.
Of course. Quick question about the backup camera show. Were you sitting or kneeling or were you in a chair?
No, no.
Just standing?
Just standing.
Wow.
There's
Okay.
there's a and we didn't I don't know if the camera, like, it was an older, like a first gen backup camera,
Okay.
or if neither of us thought about cleaning the camera.
I was going to say, it sounds like it'd be a fisheye lens, just kind of like this circle.
It is.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, go take a look at it. It's only 10 minutes. You can feel free to scrub through it. There's a little bit of a documentary vibe to it as well that Kyle put in, of the people who helped make it.
I was going to say, and it's a time capsule because it's from during lockdown. So I'm sure
It
all,
is a
all
time
those
capsule.
timely relevant jokes. Well, again, Jackie Kashian, thank you so much for being here today. This was a lot of fun. Like I said, I've been
Thank
a
you.
big fan. And it's just great to really glad to be able to pick your brain about writing comedy today.
Right. I had a lovely time. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. And viewers and listeners, if you enjoyed today's show, please hit like. Feel free to leave a comment and subscribe. For my social media, you can check out my screenwriting blog at maximumz.blog. From still on Twitter at maximum_Z and Blue Sky and Instagram at Pez Screenwriting, just like the candy. And also, this show has its own accounts on Twitter and on Blue Sky at Podcast CWL. And if you want to check out all of those interviews I did with film consultants and directors and screenwriters and all kinds of writers of all kinds of mediums, check out my Go Ahead and Ask books. Those are on Amazon. Like I said, that's Jackie. I'm Paul. This has been the Creative Writing Life podcast. Thanks for listening. Stay safe, stay healthy, and most importantly, go write something.